Again, just going to give you a lead-in question for interview preparation because it's just it's nice to have something to build off of. I'm going to skip ahead of our agenda and I'm going to start with what are a few of your favorite questions to ask a potential employer?
This highlights a bigger point I really want all the students here to write down or memorize. Like, this is a two-way dialogue. An interview, you don't have to sit there with your head down and, this is your chance to ask whatever it is you want to know about the employer. It's a two-way contract. Um, in my personal experience, that took me a long time to find the courage to interact that way. Um, I definitely came from the side of just keeping my head down and being super, oh, that's awesome, right? And the yes guy, and then just silence. You can't do that. Don't do what I did. Don't take 7 years to figure that out. Um,
Same.
the older I get, the more important it is for me to dig deep into what the company culture is. To start out with a header on this one, um, learning it depends on how big the company is, how many interviews you think you'll have, how many people are in each interview. You got to be ready to pivot quickly on the questions you ask. So to start diving into this, my experience as a musician, we're talking about background diversity in what you do. It's improv, right? This is a live performance on both sides, and you have to call and respond with everything that's going on. So I usually start with the most senior person in the room and ask them how they would describe the company culture. And beyond that, how has it evolved since they joined the company? And just stop. And the key point is silence. I love meeting people, talking to people. I usually keep talking too long. So just stop and listen. Right. So how would you describe your company culture and how has it evolved since you joined the company? And then watch what the other people sitting around, if there are other people, their body language, what they're doing. How do they respond to that senior person's answer? Do they look like they're agreeing with that person? Or like, what is that? That's not that kind of stuff. Make note of that, right? So you get to see them, like, how aligned really are they as a team? Do they all know what they're doing? Do they know what matters? Does the head person know what matters? And I'm going to stop right there because I really want to know what Jessica has to say about that.
You are so much nicer than I am. So, so I look at this, I'm a numbers person. If I have a job, I am going to commit 2,080 hours a year at this job. You better be sure I'm going to ask questions because if I don't like it, that's a huge commitment on my side, right? Yes, you can always find a job, but you're accepting a contract to work for somebody. So for me, and committing 2,080 hours a year minimum, if you don't do overtime, um, I go through the interview and at the end, I completely turn it on them. I want to know, who am I going to report to? Who is the manager? What's your plan? What are the challenges you would want me to work on? And I'll ask them, do you have a development plan? So am I just coming in to come in, or is there something you guys set me up? Are there programs? Are there, do I have the ability to cross train in other areas? Like, I want to know what their expectations are for me in that role. And what's very interesting, when I've done this, I've actually been offered the job on the spot in some cases because we start talking about the challenge that they're having. I'm a total whiteboarder. So when we start talking about this in an interview, I have gotten up and laid out, oh, you should fix it like this. And I've laid it out and I've had someone say, what is your number? You have the job. We're done. And that's happened to me twice. It also gets me in trouble because they know I have ideas and I want to lay it out. And I think this is a really great plan to have that. So they're going to expect that from you when you get there. So make sure you're going to be proactive there.
Totally.
But yeah, that is your chance to ask questions about the team, about your expectations, about the culture, the company. Do I have flexibility? Is this a 9 to 5? Can I come in early? Can I come in late? If you're working on your master's, hey, if I have a rough day in homework, can I work from home that day? I mean, there is no wrong question. They can either answer it or they don't. And What I've found is I enjoy companies that want to have that conversation in the interview. Not every company is going to want to talk like that. Not every hiring manager is, it can be overwhelming as a hiring manager to have all that, or they may just say, I can't say it. But it doesn't hurt to ask, right? So think about what is important to you, prioritize those things, and ask. They either answer or they don't. If they don't, is that a red flag to you? Do you want to work for someone who won't answer that question? Think about it. So.
Hey, you know
Totally agree.
what's powerful
Yeah.
about what the two of them just said is to recognize you got to be yourself.
Yes.
Because different than Matt, and they both would go into an interview with a slightly different perspective to how they're going to do that. Don't contrive. Don't try to be one that doesn't fit for you. So the challenge here is if you're not of Jessica's ilk, the angle that Matt went down is probably going to work better for you if it's something that you honestly want to ask. If you
Totally. And I would offer the commonality between both of us is that we're not afraid to engage.
there you go.
And it's however that is for you, for anyone that's in the room today. I really feel that's critical to get across the table is that you're not afraid to engage anybody, that you're going to jump in, whatever problem it is they have, whatever team they have, they're going to get to know each other. They're going to get to know you, and it's going to happen right away. And it can take a while to get up to. I've interviewed tens of times now. I mean, there's 7 in the last round. It gets better every time. You're going to come back.
You're
with
always
better
the hardest.
questions. Right? Oh my God, the first one's terrible.
Yeah.
But eventually I think they get fun, and maybe I'm a weirdo for thinking that. But when you start to get the hang of it,
Yeah.
and they see that you've gotten the hang of it, then you get really good conversations that come out of these interviews, and everybody feels way better about it. It's not nearly as awkward.
Yeah.
Well, like Jessica was saying, if you're getting these red flags, you got to know going into these interviews, what are they? For me, cultural problems or disagreements are a big red flag. When we all go back to our caves and discuss, and I discuss with myself what it all just happened from that interview, I got to inventory and say, okay, these are all the red flags. Do I care? How much do I care? They're going to do the same thing. But just knowing yourself going into it of what you can deal with, what you don't want to deal with, it's an optional arrangement.
But in both cases, you engaged. And so for the shy engineers out there, you got to come out of that little engineering shell of yours, and you have got to open your mouth. And so in the context of sitting with these folks, you got to let them know you're an interesting person because you have tons to offer. And so what they're trying to say is the rules of the game aren't this. An interview isn't to beat you over the head with a 2x4. There are a few hiring managers who think that way, but predominantly that's not the goal. The goal is to find out if you've got the personality and the skill set that match up to solve their problem in an economical way. And in order to figure out who you are, they have to have a conversation, not a dictation. And that's why they have interview questions, because they want to ask you certain things. And remember what Jessica said, for some companies, they actually have checklists they have to, go down the list on. But in the context of doing that, have a conversation, be a human, ask a question, be curious about their offerings, be a Jessica, and make sure you answer all the questions that you need to know about and get the job right then and there by being so into the conversation that they kind of go, man, this you A, B, C, D, and F all the way to Z. Let's just hire her and get this over with because I don't want to spend any more time interviewing. And I'm not joking. That really happens out there as long as you're willing to have the conversation and engage with them, just like Matt and Jessica did. Thanks.
And I think there's light at the end of the tunnel as you go through your career. And, if you have that history of being a high performer and you are in demand, the interview actually kind of flips. So I know the last 1 or 2 I've been in, it's not me asking them questions. I'm really sitting back with my feet up that says, okay, I've got a good job and I make good money. I'm not leaving for anything easy. So come to me with your best offer. And when you start getting in those positions where you are comfortable and you have something, you're not going to leave just for anything. So you get to push back a little bit more. And, this is what I'm looking for. If you don't have it, it's not going to work out. So I've turned down jobs because of that. They weren't offering me what I wanted, whether position or career wise or, development. And I was like, it's not going to work for me. I like where I'm at. I like doing this. You're not better. Thank you for the opportunity,
Yeah, I saw we got a question in the chat too from Juliana. What questions would you ask in a job interview to help you determine if the work environment or work loads commonly induce stress or burnout? That's an excellent question. I think now more than ever, I can't wait to hear what Jessica has to say. All I know for this, I lead with the culture question. To me, this is a subset of that question. We talk about interviews, flip like the relationship changing in interviews. I'm always excited to see once they figure out we're going to take a deep dive here into some very deep organizational things you guys may not have talked about, and this is one of them, and to see how they all react to it when there are challenges that come up with projects that go sideways that are a lot of right now. Like this morning, Bridget was describing supply chain issues. It's a great lead in. Can your team describe, or the manager describe, a situation where an outside force has affected a project and put everyone under a lot of stress? How did you guys adapt? How did you overcome it? And what was the price to pay for it? And then just stop talking. I got to remind myself all the time. Jessica, what do you got?
So I've got a few here. One, I work at Amazon. So if you talk to anyone at Amazon, the first thing they're going to do is Amazon kills their employees. That was when my friends and family heard that, hey, I'm interviewing, I'm excited, I'm trying to get this position. That was something I heard a lot about, and it was something I asked in my interview. So they do this panel interview, and I did ask a few people, how are the hours working with this company? Are you able to, how are you balancing work-life balance? That's something I ask a lot of people kind of one-on-one is, and in a lot of my previous jobs, I support a worldwide organization, which means I support multiple time zones. So as you're applying for these jobs, is this job located and supports the US, or does this job support multiple time zones? If it supports multiple time zones, am I expected to support those? My last job, I actually worked on a European team, but I agreed to stay in the US. I refused to move. However, I had to support European hours as my main hours. So I was up at 4 and 5 in the morning a lot, doing more of that crossover. I also supported China and India. So depending on the job type, those are type of questions you can ask. How are you personally handling work-life balance with your role in this organization? Is this an international position? You can ask if it's a manager or someone, what is your company's policy on, do you expect people to answer emails on the weekend? That's something that comes up. My fiance runs the KC46 program. And even though he's not scheduled to work on weekends, if a hot ticket comes out, he is expected to answer that within 24 hours, whether it's the weekend or not. So he does have a phone that he uses on call. So those are sometimes things, am I supporting a hot ticket? If I do, what is the SLA, right? You can ask, what is that response time that is expected for the job I'm doing? Can it wait till Monday? Do I have to answer that when the ticket comes up? Think about those type. What is an SLA? I can't remember the full acronym, but it's basically, what is your response time? If this kicks out, the expectation is to respond either within the hour, 24 hours, 48 hours, etc. Usually we deal with that when IT systems go down. Yeah, service level agreement. Thank you. I'm a little rusty on that one. Yeah, so those are questions I can think about where you can kind of weed in there, at least to get what some of those expectations are. And then this is where your network comes in too. Know people that work at the company and talk to them. Before I started Amazon, I reached out to people I know that work there and said, do they really kill you? And they didn't. So, rumors sometime. Just stay away from those fulfillment centers.
Another thing to remember too, kind of springs off of Jessica's point of, know that the answers you're getting in an interview are going to come from with a corporate filter on them, like the honest feedback. I would trust people at or above my level that have or do work at the company more in that moment. But it's all part of a bigger picture. I wouldn't want to just go off of what I hear in the interview or just what I hear in the corporate rumor mill. I need both to cross-reference them.
It's kind of like Amazon ratings. When you go into a product, you have a few that gives it a 1 star and the
Right.
rest of them are 5 stars, and you kind of have to feel it out.
Yes, discernment.
Yeah, Glassdoor's like that too.
Oh, they all are. They're all tools, but they all have their weaknesses. Absolutely.
Well, and every like company and team is has a political element, and so and some people fit into the particular politics of that team, and some don't. So it's kind of about it's almost a matter of figuring out what kind of political what are the kind of politics within that sphere you are willing to navigate and or you fit well into.
Yeah. And you can ask that from a process perspective too. I know in a few of my positions, you could ask if the workload increases, how does your team usually handle that? Do you have the ability to hire additional headcount, or would that be consuming your existing resources? For example, I'm in the military and we have the Air National Guard. We only have a limited number of headcount for these projects, period. There's one open headcount. That's all we're getting this year. They are very transparent about what open headcount is there for that year. Sometimes you can ask that. Is there one position, two positions? Are you hiring throughout the year to get an understanding of those workloads? You could also possibly ask them, what's your process? If I see something that may need to be improved, what is your process to support that? I like to look for companies that listen to their employees or have some type of process where you can put in ideas and they do something to execute that. Starbucks is really great at that. Sekisui is really great at that, where they have an entire process where they evaluate that. So that could be something you could ask to get more information about the company, that some of those solutions may help take stress off you if your workload increases.
Another question that popped in my head as we're talking to ask employers. I really enjoy the one where ask your future manager, can you tell me about a person that you've mentored within the company? And also ask them about someone that has mentored them. And that one usually works as a good warm-up question because someone that's mentored them, it's warm, fuzzy feelings, good memories, right? They already consider them a mentor, puts everybody at ease, but it gives you an understanding of what their value system is, what they remember about people, and just another piece of the picture of what the structure of this company is.
Do we have any questions from the students about interview prep? Juliana, you've been very good about asking questions. Oren, do you have any questions? Okay.